Hello, everyone. It's me again. I'm here with part two of what if Captain America was the main character of the Infinity Saga. After holding this off for some time now, I'm back with this series. But, anyways, let's begin, shall we? The first movie is Iron Man 2. It's basically the same movie, except Justin Hammer would have more villains at his side than just Whiplash. Like, I'd say Ghost and Firepower. And during the climax, he would become Titanium Man to face Rhodey and Tony. And a lot of the Avengers stuff in the film would be dropped for obvious reasons. But there would be an after credits scene which sets up the Mandarin, replacing the Thor after credits scene. Next movie is X-Men First Class. In this timeline, after the failure of X-Men Origins Wolverine, more specifically the negative reception, not the failure, Fox would decide to make a deal with Marvel to reboot the X-Men, the MCU. Basically, the team would be, since I tend to portray the X-Men as like the Marvel versions of the Teen Titans, here's like, the team. Basically, Cyclops, played by Ty Sheridan. Jean Grey, played by Abigail Cohen, who I think would have been the perfect choice for Jean if the X-Men were introduced later down the line, back during the Infinity Saga. Nightcrawler, played by Cody Smith McPhee. Wolverine, played by Henry Cavill. Storm, played by Beyonce. And Beast, played by Nicholas Hoult. Of course, Professor X would appear and would be played by James McAvoy. As for the Brotherhood of Mutants, that they would be, rather than going with the Brotherhood immediately, I'm going to go with Mr. Sinister, played by John Hamm. Magneto would be more of the secondary villain, and he would have his children, Quicksilver and Wanda, by his side, who would be played by Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen still. Apparently, Essex would be Scott and Jean's science teacher, and some sort of freak accident turned Essex into Mr. Sinister, who is now obsessed with cloning and experimenting on mutants, which he did manage to succeed with Quicksilver and Wanda. Apparently, during the final battle, Quicksilver and Wanda turn against their father and Essex, and they decide to become members of the X-Men. However, there would be an after-credits scene where Magneto forms the Brotherhood of Mutants, with one member being Mystique and another Sabretooth. Both of which would be played by Angelina Jolie and Jason Momoa. Next movie is Thor: The Dark World. It's basically the same movie, except Curse would be replaced with Enchantress. And she would try to turn Thor evil so that way they can kill Malekith. Apparently she escapes and is captured by the Asgardians, while Thor would defeat Malekith by summoning lightning from all the 9 realms to strike Malekith down, as conceived in earlier drafts. And Malekith's relationship with Enchantress would be similar to that of Anakin Skywalker and Emperor Palpatine. Apparently, Malekith took Enchantress in as his child after he killed his family, even his master, who was a sorcerer. And Malekith would also be more like how he was in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. That's all. Next movie is Captain America the Winter Soldier. Movie is basically the same, but the Winter Soldier storyline would be important here because it's bringing the trilogy full circle by bringing Bucky back. One difference is that because this is a full circle film, Ermin Zola would be kind of like the antagonist who is controlling Bucky's actions, and this forces Steve and Bucky to team up to take down Zola, who is now in a robot suit. And we get more development on Black Widow and Cap's relationship, which would have been set up in Captain America Man Out of Time, and now it's come here at last. Next movie is Guardians of the Galaxy. It's basically the same movie, except I think the one difference is that there would be an in-gag joke to Star-Lord's origins being changed from the comics. Like, I could picture a scene where Drax or Rocket tell Star-Lord if he's a space prince, but Star-Lord's like, no, I'm not. This serves as an in-gag joke to where James Gunn changed Star-Lord's origins due to him not being a fan of the character Jason, who was Star-Lord's father in the comics. Other than that, same movie. Next movie is Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's basically the same movie, except this is Scott's introduction, and whenever Hank and Janet are out doing their own superhero stuff, Scott is being forced to look after Henry, their son. But consequently, it's causing Henry Jr. and his friend Cassie Lane from school, who would be played by McKenna Grace, since she does look almost like Cassie in the comics, to get closer, like a playdate of sorts. As for the villain, it would be someone like a returning Black Ant, who would take Ghost in as like his sidekick. And Scott finds the Ant-Man suit and is forced to become like Hank and Janet's sidekick after Henry Jr. and Cassie are kidnapped by Black Ant. And essentially, during the final battle, we get the reveal that Ghost is actually the daughter of Egghead, and this forces Ghost to save Hank, Janet, and Scott, or let Eric O'Grady kill the three of them in front of their children. Eventually, she grabs a gun and kills Eric by shooting him. It's essentially like, you know, if Jason Todd was forced to kill Batman or the Joker, and he decides to kill the Joker. It's kind of like that. And the after credits scene would feature someone watching, and he goes by the name of Mr. Tarleton. I'm pretty sure you know who I'm saying up. And there'd also be a setup for Ultron. Speaking of Ultron, next movie is Avengers Age of Ultron. It's basically the same movie except Ultron would corrupt Hank Pym into becoming Yellow Jacket. And Hank is like the secondary antagonist, and this forces Scott to be Ant-Man again. And the romance between Hulk and Black Widow would be replaced with more of Steve and Nat's relationship. And Cap would see Hank becoming a villain known as Yellow Jacket. And that would give him memories of how he saw that in Bucky. But obviously he can't change Hank's mind the way he changed Bucky's mind. This, of course, does throw in a cameo from Bucky, though he's not really important to the plot. At some point in the movie, Ultron would kidnap Janet and Henry Jr., and this forces Hank to save his family and betray Ultron. And eventually, he takes Ultron's programming after Vision destroys his body and then crushes it. But he decides to leave the Avengers out of guilt and self-punishment by appointing Scott Lang as his successor. Next movie is Spider-Man Homecoming. In this timeline, the TASM films never existed. And Sony, for years, have been trying to make a reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, but have been unable to until they made a deal with Marvel to get Spider-Man to the MCU. The film would take elements from Spider-Man Homecoming and The Amazing Spider-Man. Like, the suit would be more akin to the Ultimate Comics, and the film would be called The Amazing Spider-Man. Like, of course, Peter's parents wouldn't really be too important as they were, and Uncle Ben's death would still be skipped. Ned, MJ, and Betty would be replaced with Harry Osborn, who I could picture being played by Brent Thwaites, Mary Jane, played by Sophie Turner, and Gwen Stacy, who I could picture being played by Sabrina Carpenter. And unlike Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy, she'd be with Harry. And Zendaya would play Liz Allen. Vulture's backstory would also be alter her to where it's more like in the Spectacular Spider-Man, where he was a former Oscorp employee, but was ratted out by Norman Osborn because Norman hated a lot of his projects. And speaking of Norman Osborn, he would appear, and I could picture either Chris Cooper playing him still, or even Billy Crudup. Harry's whole arc in this film is that he's tired of living under his father's shadow and wants to step out of it. He wants to be his own thing, separate from his father. But that's going to be important in a later movie. Iron Man's not in the movie as much as he... The only time Iron Man would appear would be when he saves the people on the boat along with Spider-Man, and instead of the whole, I'm gonna have to take the suit from you, and Spider-Man says, I'm nothing about the suit. Instead, Iron Man would try to have Spider-Man be a new recruit to the Avengers, but Spider-Man's like, I'm not ready yet. And so Spider-Man leaves. But movie's identically the same. But there's another thing to change. One more thing. The ending would involve Norman trying to have Peter join him and his family because he knows how good of a relationship he has with his son Harry, but Peter's like, no. Probably because I think Peter would figure out that Norman was involved with Vulture's backstory and he knows this is the guy that created Vulture, and he's like, no, I can't do that. And so abandons that. Out of self realization. And of course, Vulture's whole goal would be to kill Norman Osborn as revenge. That's the last thing I need to mention. But of course, Spider-Man stops him in the end. So that's What If Captain America was the main character of the Infinity Saga, Part 2. I'm going to hold Phase 3 off for some time until, like, I don't know when. I don't know. But I will release Phase 3 as soon as possible. Anyways, bye.